Blindness and Visual Impairment, an Introduction to an Informational Guide by Nick Burton. Blind versus visually impaired. Though they are sometimes used interchangeably, these terms can give subtle clues to the amount of vision or lack thereof an individual has. Blind generally infers that the individual is unable to see at all, whereas terms like visually impaired and low vision are used to describe individuals whose visual acuity is worse than 20/70 with the best possible correction. Legal blindness is a level of vision loss that has been legally defined to determine eligibility for benefits. The clinical diagnosis refers to a central visual acuity of 2200 or less in the better eye with the best possible correction, and or a visual field of 20 degrees or less. Often people who are diagnosed with legal blindness still have some usable vision. Definition taken from the American Foundation for the Blind's website. Visual acuity is the clinical measure of the eye's ability to distinguish details of the smallest identifiable letter or symbol. This measurement is usually given in a fraction and is based upon visible print size. Typical vision is 20/20. If an individual sees 2200, the smallest letter that this individual can see at 20 feet could be seen by someone with typical vision at 200 feet. Definition taken from the American Foundation for the Blind's website. How to recognize someone who is blind or visually impaired. The most common way people recognize a person who is blind or visually impaired is by whether they carry a cane or use a guide dog. But not everyone needs or chooses to use these mobility aids, and not everyone has low enough vision to need such devices, but still need some help in their daily lives. But for those who do need mobility aids, there are a wide range that the general public may not be familiar with as being for the blind or visually impaired. Images taken from Google Images. Assistive devices. I chose some common assistive devices the general public should familiarize themselves with, so when you see a blind or visually impaired individual using one, it won't be strange or suspicious. I'll explain in another video what these items do and why I said someone might think it looks suspicious later. Images taken from Google Images. See the video description for a link where you can find these and more assistive devices. Etiquette. Never assume that a visually impaired or blind individual has another disability as well as their lack of sight. For example, talking as though they are deaf or mentally challenged. Never talk as though the blind or visually impaired person is not present. For example, if the individual has a friend, family member, or caregiver with them and you want to ask a question, ask the individual themselves. Don't ask the friend, family, caregiver as if the individual was not there. If they're unable to answer, then it is appropriate to talk to whomever is with them, but never assume they are unable to answer for themselves. Never grab the hand or arm of a blind or visually impaired person to lead them somewhere. Ask them if they would like assistance and offer them your arm. They will hold on to the outside of your elbow and you can guide them this way. If you're unsure if a visually impaired or blind individual is capable of a certain task, signing their name for example, ask them. Again, never assume.